Hey y'all, it's Diana from the Dianaverse, and I am here to do the full moon in Gemini forecast. The full moon's going to be happening on the 7th, and that's going to be at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's the time zone I'm in, just for your location. Happy birthday to all our Sagittarians who still have their birthdays coming up. Hope you have a good one. So we're having, like I said, the full moon in Gemini, and it's conjunct the Aries retrograde that's also in Gemini. So it's kind of like this amplified Gemini energy. It's kind of like the full moon phase of Mars in Gemini. Like aspects also have a beginning, kind of a culmination, and then an end. And we're kind of right in that full phase with that Mars. So got a lot of Gemini energy going on despite it being Sun in Sagittarius right now. So Gemini is the sign that represents siblings. It represents information, lots of information, sometimes information overload. It's kind of quick and dirty. It likes to look at all of these different details and move to the next one, right? It's not about the deeper meaning of things necessarily, but it does collect a lot of information, and it's kind of like a festive sign. Like it brings a certain amount of happiness to, it's a party sign, right? It's gatherings of people. It's more than one. So every sign has its pros and its cons. It can be quick courses and trainings, information download into your brain. So Mars is out of bounds, this whole transit. And what that means in astrology is that Mars orbit, from our viewpoint here on Earth, is outside of the ecliptic. The ecliptic is kind of goes out from the equator, and it's there's a line of constellations that go along that line from going straight out from the equator, and that's our constellations that we use in astrology. And when a planet is out of bounds, its declination or inclination is a little above or below the ecliptic, and we say that it's out of bounds. When it's out of bounds, it can do things out of the ordinary for what that sign would normally do. So what that means to us in a practical sense is that we can see things outside the box, our thoughts, our ideas, because it's in Gemini, and how we act on them, which is Mars. The best use scenario of this energy, we can think up new ways to move through life based on opening up to more information at our disposal. So in contrast to the media break that I suggested last month at the new moon, actually that was still this, no, it was last month. We just switched months. But it was the new moon. Anyway, I suggested taking a media break, and for this lunation, I'm proposing taking in more information and sifting through it for new input. Because that Mars is out of bounds, we can look at things from a different perspective. So don't get hung up on the actual data, right? It's not all about necessarily what the data says, but look for the rabbit holes. Like, what does that information lead you to? Like things that you want to research, or what triggers you? Why does it get under your skin, and what would you want to change about it? Is there an avenue for you to direct energy towards that in small steps? Does it trigger a trauma, something that the situation reminds you of that same energy that maybe you need to work on? Does it provoke the same feelings of anger or frustration from your past? Because it might not be what's going on right now at all. It might be triggering that same emotion to let you know that's something that you need to work on. Chiron is in Aries, so right now, in relation to Mars, it's in Contrantisha, which means it has a relationship that's a more subtle relationship. It's not like a direct aspect. You get that by adding up the amount of degree points. And anyway, I'm not going to go into a big explanation of Antisha and Contra-Antisha, but there's a subtle influence there with Chiron. So some of these things the thoughts that come up, the things that you see in the news could trigger healing of things for you. So this could be highlighted by gaining new skills through training or courses that take you on a different path. So that could be healing for you compared to things you've done in the past. There's an emphasis on small corrections. Taking big steps or grandiose gestures might actually kind of backfire right now. Slow and steady wins the race. So, because Mars is retrograde, you don't necessarily want to jump forward too fast. You're like sifting through all this stuff to figure out where you're going to want to take action when it goes direct again in the spring. He's not leaving his retrograde shadow until March. He will go direct before that, but they say there's a shadow period of time where they're not out of that influence yet. So we're just kind of gathering the skills and the intel right now. And we won't be actually wanting to act on that till later. And there's some more reasons I say don't take big steps right now, so I'll get to that. It's kind of like being in a stream rather than a deep lake. We want to wade through it, not dive. You know, if you dive, you might hit your head or something. It might not be so good. Those who feel pressured to take big moves will likely be judged for it later on the world stage, because we got that Saturn in Aquarius still. So the things that you do could have a bigger impact than they might at other times, because everything is sort of connected. Like we've got Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces. That's like the collective unconscious, the bigger picture, the bigger stage of humanity, if you will. So things that you put out there in big ways are going to get noticed in ways that you might go back over and not be as happy with later. So we might see people and countries taking some big actions. Undoubtedly, some of them will feel pressure to do that, and they may kind of trip over their feet. So small corrections right now are really good. If there was ever a time to watch how your words come out, this is it, right? Gemini, sometimes things fly out, especially with Mars behind it, pushing it. Even if you feel justified in your opinion, you might want to get more info. You might want to look at it from someone else's perspective, because it might look different than what you're thinking yourself. So we've all gotten used to partial news and sound bites, right, to get our information. So I invite you for this lunation to take one dramatic news item, see how much real information you can find out about it from several different news sources, even the ones you wouldn't necessarily always listen to, because you might get a different perspective than what you might just assume for it to be. If you go back, like maybe research that person, like where did they first get these views, or first come out with them, or first say something. Do you really have a whole picture, or are you just getting a soundbite of what actually happened? And if you find out more about it, do you still have the impression of the story, or were there different viewpoints to discover, or have you adjusted what you think about it when you have a little more information? I think this is a good practice in general, but right now is a good time to kind of see how that works. I've done that a few times, like I've jumped on something posted and reposted it, and then when I looked into it, I was like, oh, that wasn't quite what I thought it was. So I've learned not to just repost things or just assume that I know what's going on from some 2-minute video about it. You get a better overview with more information. The changes we make now at this time will last with us for the next several years. So make your best choices as consciously as you can manage. You can think of Mars and Gemini as the fire of inspiration, right? Because the Mars is the fire and the Gemini is inspiration. With the Sun in Sagittarius supporting the fire, and the Moon in Gemini as more air to fuel the fire. So you want all that enthusiasm, right? But then you want to get enough information to know that you're going forward with the best concept of something that you can have. Feed the fire with clarity. Try to avoid dumping water on it, in this case with outdated, grandiose schemes. That's the Jupiter and Neptune right now. Look out for con men, look out for people with big ideas that are just hot air. Maybe they're never really gonna go through things. So you want to not fall into that pitfall of big ideas. Like, you want enthusiasm, you want ideas, you want to dream big, but then you want to see if that's something you can really get a fire under you for, or if the cold water of reality is going to kind of dampen that. So my plant friends for this month that I suggest, I'm working with incense. Kind of get the fire and the air. I'm working with cedar. It's a plant that is ruled by the fire element. It popped into my thoughts. Native people here, anyway, in the Pacific Northwest, say it helps with communication. So if I'm going to be sending out my prayers when I'm doing my meditation, right, when I have my little incense burning on my altar, I want good communication between me and the divine, whichever divine you happen to resonate with, and or any incense that works for you, for without whatever things you're trying to take forward, and whatever is going to inspire you. My stone friend for this month that I suggest would be calcite, especially the ones, or not calcite, fluorite, fluorite. The ones that have more than one color. Have you ever seen those? I have one piece that I really love. I should have brought it here to put on camera. And it's like yellow and purple, and they're like, fluorite grows in these like kind of cube configurations, and it's really pretty. Or the other classic one for Gemini, if you're working, want to work with like something really Gemini ruled for the full moon, is pearls, is the traditional thing. So pearls are the pearls of wisdom, so they can help you make wise choices. And that's what I have for you today. If you like the videos, please subscribe or like, and feel free to share them with anybody who might enjoy some forecasting, some thoughts about the lunation, the moon, and enjoys working with the energy. All right, I will see you again in 2 weeks, and hope you have a good full moon and you make some great forward movement. All right, bye-bye.